Unmatched socks were pinned to a bulletin board on the left wall above the washer and dryers. Each one had a note attached to it, things like, "For a good time, use me," "Have you seen my foot," and "I'm so fucking lonely." David wasn't sure what to think of the bright orange poster, a board sign that read, "Stop pissing in the damn machines or I will kill you, management." The overall decrepit condition of this place made him cringe, but it was the first laundromat he had seen over a week. He'd been wearing the same damn clothes for 2 days, and his car was starting to stink. He let his duffel bag hang off dirty laundry off the floor and headed back to his car for detergent and dryer sheets. Inside of his beat-up '94 Honda Civic was cluttered with all the things he had figured he'd need for his rubber tramping excursion. He had taken out of the back seat to make room for a sleeping bag and other necessities. It had been a tight fit living in his car for the past 3 weeks, but he didn't lose his initial enthusiasm for an adventure yet. It was still his intention just to drive until he wanted to go home. His romantics in him had hoped that he'd find a space nestled somewhere out there. He would fall in love or maybe get a girl that had shared his love for other spaces. He often pulled the curtains over the windows, grabbed what he needed, and shut off the fifth door of his hatchback. Turning away from his car, he looked up at the sign that read, "The Fluffy Bubble, 24-hour laundry." The rusty mop mounts were slightly pulled away from the brick facade, causing the sign to slant downward. The thought of it just wanted a better view of the customers coming and going made David chuckle a little. The name of the place didn't register in his head. He was used all the names that adorned the fronts and of laundromats. Some were clever like the washing well, agitate and tumble, or the laundry basket. Others were silly like suds and duds, the busy bubble, and the tubby's bubbies. Then there was ones that were borderline pornographic, sit and spin, come clean, which had a flashing neon sign. So the words were uninterchangeable in his favorite, drop a load of laundry. David preferred establishments with more practical names like 24-hour laundromat and anytime laundry. The place was busier than he knew. Etienne was twinched, heads turned around compound eyes, focused on the interloper as he entered the laundromat. The unspoken agreement was that this time was to come out and play, and he had broken. A thick fog of seething anger was forming under the peeling aluminum, in the walls, under every machine, and David was oblivious. How could he have known the businesses hadn't been open in 24 hours 7 so many years? It had been decided against changing the sign, was just too expensive. Or was that the old man who owned the place had been hospitalized earlier in the day? No one knew what the establishment owner knew about the place, so nobody bothered to lock up. An emerald glow illuminated the empty sockets, a throbbing light said to be too much to its servants. Now just a skull, but one innocent man who'd seen too much. His remains were sunk deep in the foundations of several local establishments, under the construction at the time of his disappearance. Time went by and people stopped wondering what happened to the young man. Many years ago, a crack formed in the foundation, and a medicinal little fracture in the concrete slowly crept towards the gruesome secret resting place of Gary Jansen's head. The fissure grew within width and depth over the years. At first, the residents of the dark recesses of the building ignored the pulsing light opening revealed, when most of the vermin eventually moved to other places, but one species remained. One species swayed left, right, right to the rhythm of the beating heart of their word. It tapped into the depths of their own 300 million old instinct. It showed them how to think and act as one. It became their heart and mind, and became so its ever-responding body. The first washer he opened nearly knocked him on his ass, and now he understood why management was promising death to the culprit. He moved over a few machines and inspected one thoroughly before loading it. He fed a few quarters into it and repeated the process within the next washer. The rhythmic slosh, slosh, slosh of the washers revoked, and a yawn from David. While he was inspecting the dryers, a legion of connected minds conferred silently on how to deal with the trespasser. He pulled up a chair to one of the washers and propped his feet up on it, leaning back and closed his eyes. He had been driving for hours as he figured a nap was a good way to kill some time. While priding himself on being the light sleeper, he was confident that the machine would buzz him awake. Little did he know the machines would soon be off as well as the lights. David suddenly found himself waist deep in the body of water. Something was in the water with him just below the surfaces, swimming ever so tightening circles around him. He tried to propel himself backwards, but these movements were slowed by the quickly rising gray quicksand-like substance. Now replaced the water ahead of him was a concrete mixture truck funneling gallons upon gallons of cement into the excavated pit. The cement engulfed the soldiers as the thing just under the surface brushed against his back, then swiftly swam around his body to face him. A skeletal hand burst from the surface and clamped onto his mouth, just like it opened it to scream. It loosened his vice-like grip onto his mouth and began to coil its impossible length around his head like a snake, muffling his useless screams. David could barely stand the pressure, and he felt over his entire body as the cement quickly hardened around him. It felt like his head would pop at any moment as his arms began to squeeze his skull. He could hear the quickening of his heart, badum, badum, banded, bumbent, cement, 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 cement. Yes! He called out. The skeletal arm burst into thousands of cockroaches. They scuttled all over the surface, blackened out the sight, and crawled into his mouth, one after another, after another, after another. They raced down his throat and quickly filled every cavity. Intersectal whispers skittered throughout his mind. You are nothing but a hollowed-out husk. Hollowed-out husk, your insides will flow with millions of eggs. Millions of eggs. The newly hatched nymphs will crawl from every orifice to make room for more and more Oothecae. David woke up with a shout. An orange glow coming from the storefront window was the only light he had to see. Every surface of the laundromat crawled. The machines, walls, ceiling, tables, and chairs were seething with cockroaches. Every surface was hidden with swaying shadows, webbing being the flowing of the tide. The cockroaches scattered in every direction. As he leapt onto the chair, the old metal fold-up chair instantly tripped and spilled him onto the folding table. He rolled across it and crashed into the floor like the other side. David panicked yells, interminating with the angry, hissing chirping, was all he could hear as he splashed down the sea of cockroaches. He felt crunching and squishing of their little bodies under him as he rolled to his hands and knees. Bile rose up in his throat and he felt their gooey innards soaking through his thin t-shirt. He quickly rose to his feet, banged his head on the old heavy wall-mounted television, and darted for the door. David came close to a stop with the waves of insectal limbs, thoraxes, and abdomens, and rose up for a foot over the floor in front of him. The wave shifted backwards slightly, and then rolled towards him, crashing at his feet. With a long leg leaped forward. He continued his rush towards the door. Upon nearing the door, the room went completely silent. The swarming floor skittered aside to open a path to the exit, and David didn't hesitate to rip open the door and flee into the parking lot. He rushed to his car, brushing the cockroaches off as he ran, and flung the door open. He leapt inside and began to panic further and scream in frustration as he fumbled for his pocket for his keys. Finally, he started up his car with a metal grinding shriek, hopped up the curb, and slammed onto the brick facade of the laundromat. After a few seconds later, the car lurched backwards and spun around with the screech of its tires, sped out in the parking lot with sparks flying up behind it. A few minutes later, the fluffy bubble sign came crashing down. A couple of miles down the road, the sparks subsided. David didn't know why, and he didn't care. He just wanted to put as many miles between him and that awful place as he could. After about 100 miles, he saw a sign for a hotel and decided to get a room for the night. Once he was certain the room was completely bug-free, He stripped off his disgusting clothes and crawled into bed. He passed out within seconds. About an hour later, he slipped out of bed and crawled to another corner of the room. He peeled back the carpet with an effort and stuck his fingers down his throat until he gagged and vomited on the corner. He pushed the carpet back into place and then crawled back to bed, never opened his eyes. Several hours later, he woke up and felt better than he had felt in quite a while. He didn't understand what the hell had happened, but decided he wasn't going to let this ruin his trip. He'd buy some new clothes, get his car checked out, and drive through every state in the country. That was the plan now. Nothing was going to stop him. He thought about how silly he had been earlier had he considered going home. He slipped out of the bed, stretched, and headed for the bathroom to take a shower. I'm coming to America and nothing is going to stop me now. As he pulled the door shut, hundreds of newly hatched mimps began to crawl out from the corner of the room. By the time David came out of his bathroom, not a single one was in sight. What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, stay pretty.